Welcome to Prodigy Sport Advantage Stations. P.S.A Podcast is an unconventional podcast that challenges the audience to think outside the box using real-life experiences, clever narratives, original quotes, and the creative use of satire in order to break the audience free from negative paradigms and push them towards their own personal growth. This is by no means a method to condemn or bash the audience, but instead encourage and showcase a different perspective that might not have been seen before. PSA is designed to showcase to the listeners that the power of the mind is not a joke, and if a person can learn to control their mind and their thoughts, they will ultimately control their life. This podcast serves as a means of entertainment and educational purposes only, and not a replacement for therapy or any other type of professional help that the audience may desire. All right, y'all, what's going on? Back at it again. Got another Zoom for everybody. It is a beautiful day, whatever morning, evening, whatever time you listen to it. I know people that listen to them overnight. So we're about to get things started with today's episode titled Ben 10. All right. The meme reads, life is all about adjustments. Don't matter if a relationship ended unexpectedly, you got kicked out of your apartment, or you're under investigation for fraud. You still have to adjust. All right. Inspiration comes from the hit show Ben 10, which is a cartoon that was on Cartoon Network. I think it still might come on. I don't know. But I'm going to explain why I called it that later. Scammers, you know I love my scammers. I know a lot of scammers. You know, that's just how I go. I don't scam, but I know them. And then a quote that I really like, it says, I can change the direction of the wind, but I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. So I really like that quote. All right, so I have a guest today, man. Please introduce yourself, say your name, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Well, I'm Catherine. I go by Cat. Some people know me by my digital presence alias, my social media handles, which is Retro Barbie or Monster Barbie if you're on Twitter. I'm from Queens, New York. You're going to hear the accent pop out here and there if I get upset at any point or passionate. I try to tame her. Mm-hmm. And I am the founder of BlackMenCryToo, which is a digital invitation for men of color to unpack their hurt and share their truth and get them to know that it's okay that they can cry too, as well as the hashtag bright hair, dark liquor. That's me.
Okay. So she got a lot going on. All right. So we definitely going to get into more of that as we go along. But today, so when you hear the word adjustment, what comes to your mind?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is landing on your feet, critical like solutions, problem solving, rolling with the punches, and 2020. I think 2020 was the year to define what adjustment means. If you needed to see it, look at 2020.
No, for real. We definitely, we're going to get into that too. When you hear the word unexpectedly, what comes to mind?
I think it's just pretty straightforward. Like, it's just something that you weren't expecting, and it could be a positive or a negative. You can unexpectedly get good news, or you can unexpectedly walk into a flood in your apartment. It's just something you didn't have planned out that just threw you for a loop that day.
Right, definitely. All right, so I went ahead and defined adjustment. It says the process of adapting or becoming used to a new situation. So you pretty much hit the nail on the head. And then it says unexpectedly in a way that was not expected or regarded as likely. So when I think of those words, I definitely know, like you said, 2020 has definitely been an adjustment. And it's just unfortunate. It seemed like just the craziest things you would never think would happen have happened. From the Black Panther then died. We didn't had when Kobe had died, and then it's just from the coronavirus and all these different things, and it's really been a lot, and it's just, you know, then the police brutality seemed like they didn't kind of, you know,
lost their damn minds.
Yeah, it's just they didn't kind of spike back up. So I mean, it seemed like they never stopped, but it just seemed like this year it just seemed like they just was.
It's rampant. It's just too rampant. It's too close. It's too back to back. It's too in our face. It's too traumatic.
So it's definitely. So just, you know, not off topic, but when you see that kind of stuff on TV, like, are you one of those people? Because I've made it to my thing to where I don't even really watch the news. I just can't do it. It's too much. It's even before all of this. It's always been negative. The only time I would watch the news was, you know, I remember faithfully growing up was when being from St. Louis, when I'm trying to see my school gonna be closed for a snow day. Like, that's what I'm looking for. But now I just can't. So when you see the news, like, are you on Twitter? Do you mute certain words, or do you Like, well, how do you go about the news with all the stuff that's going on?
I think it's interesting when you think about the news, and like you said, growing up, like we used to watch it on TV, and now I will never like put on a news channel. Twitter is my news source, unfortunately. Instagram is my news source, and it just brings you back to that statement by Malcolm X, like to be Black and conscious in America means you're constantly in a state of like being enraged. And sometimes I felt like back in May when it was George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, it was fueling me because I was so angry. And it was like, this is the time we need to do something. And I was doing something and I was out there. Now it's just feeling depleted. Like to your point, it's I can't look at it anymore. It's just taking too much out of me where it's making me feel like I don't want to continue anymore. Like I don't want to fight anymore. Like I don't want to do any of this anymore. It really will deplete your energy. But it's a double-edged sword, and it's unfair to Black people, I feel like, because we have to constantly be in the know and we have to constantly understand what's going on. But consuming that so much is really messing with all of our mental health.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So now we're talking more about you. So just kind of explain how you got here today. How did Kat get to where she is now as the creator of Black Men Cry, as this socially conscious young woman from Queens? Tell us how you got here. Just a little bit of your backstory.
Well, the deepest part of how Black Men Cry Too came to fruition without me realizing it was my freshman year of high school. So I was 14. I had a best male friend who was a man of color, and he committed suicide. So that was the first experience I had of a Black man going through things, crying in the dark. I mean, he was very open and transparent of what he was going through, but when you use the word unexpected, that was an unexpected phone call to wake up to. And that has changed and altered, adjusted the way of living for me. At night, a lot of my friends know this. They can call me at any time of night because my phone is on loud because I missed his phone call that night. And that's something that adjusted my life. And then from there, I was in a mutually abusive relationship. We both had our own demons we were battling and ended up battling each other. And I ended up, since then, finding myself in situations where my male friends of color were comfortable unpacking their hurt or like their stories to me, and hearing it was like, wow, you guys hold a lot. You guys are carrying a lot. And I don't think it goes acknowledged enough. And I also don't think, because I saw a lot of movements of Black men putting these spaces and places together, I was sort of looking at, well, where are the Black women holding these space for our men so we can have that open dialogue? Because it is two sides, it's us and our community. We need to understand each other. We need to figure out a way to communicate to each other and to have these taboo conversations. And that's what led Black Men Cry Too to come into fruition.
Okay. Well, definitely, because I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw your page, I was interested. I was like, I assumed it was a dude. So when I saw it was a woman, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's even better. Because now it's like, I don't have to be, it's like, it's the kind of the, we all we got mindset. And it's good because it's showing like, oh, as a woman, I'm looking out for my brothers. And then you had a situation, which I'm a firm believer that God allows us to go through certain situations so that we can help other people. So it was kind of like you had to go through that unfortunate situation, but you're making it to where nobody ever has to feel like that again, because that was traumatic. And I've had friends who've dealt with family members that have committed suicide, and it's just like, it's a lot, just seeing how everybody handles it differently. Like some people just kind of just, bottle up, they don't really show. And some people, they turn to drinking, they might turn to alcohol, they might turn to hurting themselves. You just never know. So it's definitely pretty, I like that. So now, we're not going to do just in general, when anytime something comes up, like say for instance, how do you deal with like an adjustment, unexpected change? So like, say for instance, the cable man came, right? What if he didn't come today? How you didn't schedule your day around that and he ain't come? Like, how would you deal with just like a little adjustment or a change? Do you one of those people that just kind of like let it ruin your day, or how do you deal with those?
I like how you asked, are you one of those people that let it ruin your day? Because I believe it was a year or two ago, a girl that I was working with, I said something to her. She was like, "How your day?" And I was like, "Girl, it's not good. I'm having a bad day." And she said, "You're having a bad moment. There's 24 hours in a day. I can bet you that more time of your day is good than bad." She was like, "You probably had a bad commute. You probably had a bad conversation." She was like, "Time that up and sum that up. You probably had 60 minutes of a bad day." And
Right.
when she had said that, I was like, game changer, mind shift. I'm going to start adapting that now. I can't chalk a whole 24 hours because someone stepped on my toe or my manager pissed me off, whatever the situation may be. So I think now that's how I try to process days and try to, it's a process,
Right.
bounce back quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm currently doing is grieving whatever situation, fixing whatever situation, and leaving it there so I can enjoy any present moment. Because if 2020 taught us anything, time is not of the essence, and we don't got more time to waste. I'm not going to sit here and cable man didn't come. Okay, so I got to use my hotspot. Cool. When's the next time they're coming? I'm going to argue with Verizon. You're going to give me some money back. At the end, I'm walking away. It's not going to carry on me. I have no more strength or room for anything to be carried on me.
I don't know why it just dropped in my head. I should have used it for my inspiration. I thought of the Mary J song, "No More Drama." Like they just dropped in my head randomly. Because I had a situation where my friend said he was coming back from LA and they lost his bags. So they had put him on another plane by mistake. And they ended up finding it, but because of his trouble, they gave him a $200 voucher. So, towards the the airline. So I was like, I mean, you winning. He was like, you can lose them all the time if that's what you
Right. Like I'm losing myself. Like, oh, I don't know where it went.
right, and I'm gonna get some money and that's the thing, because I just feel like even though that was somewhat of an extreme, because sometimes we don't always get our stuff back. Oh, I never even got that voucher. I just feel like we have to adjust how we look at stuff,
Right.
because I'm wearing, and this wasn't even on purpose. It's funny how this just flowing. But I have on this shirt, this a brand from my homeboy Cornbread. Shout out to him. He got a brand called Applying Pressure. 2020 didn't apply pressure to us, so we got to apply it back.
Its foot has been on our necks since the ball dropped.
Like for real, it just came out the gate, and I saw a meme that said, "We stayed up all night for New Year's."
For this, for this. I saw that same one. That was hilarious.
So now, have you ever dealt with an adjustment, good or bad, with your brand that kind of threw you off? Because like I said, you said earlier, some adjustments can be good. So have you ever dealt with a situation where it was just like it threw you off, like whoa?
I guess I'll speak to the positive aspect because it was a positive, unexpected, and it came from technically a negative place, so to speak. I don't want to say like negative. When I launched the brand in January, and I've been working on it since July of last year, ironing it out from concept to idea to actually doing the recordings and working with folks and getting the yeses.
Mm-hmm.
The unexpected turn was during the loss of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and sort of the shift of Black Lives Matter movement. There was a lot more people looking for resources for Black men and especially mental health resources.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I think I was coming to the end, to be honest, like putting out the last episodes of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's this floodgate of people wanting to have conversations, wanting to talk, putting Black Men Cry Too on the resource list. So it was an unexpected turn of people, the exposure of it, the exposure of the brand. And the brand was only 5 months old. And it was positive feedback. And for me, when I released it, I did hold my breath a little bit because it is something hard. Like this is Black men being vulnerable. I'm leaving room for people to have negative opinions and voice those negative opinions. And I don't want anybody who's on the show to feel like they're being attacked for telling their truth and telling their story. But to see that positive shift, that was unexpected for me. And it made me have to figure out, okay, this was my thoughts of what I wanted to do, but I thought I had time to accomplish these things. And it's like, no, I have to do this now. And blessing in disguise, I was laid off from my job in April. So I had nothing but the time, the dedication to put my heart and soul into making those projects that I had on my to-do list that I thought was going to take me this whole entire year to do and bang it out in 30 days. So that was like a positive shift that I had with the brand, cultivating those relationships, being able to produce the Instagram lives thanks to quarantine. Everybody's in the house. So now I have the opportunity to grab these people, get an hour of their time, have these open dialogues, forge these conversations to happen in people's internal relationships, watching people reach out asking for where can I find therapists, where can I find this, and helping aid people in their healing process, which is the whole purpose behind Black Men Cry Too.
Right. And as I always say, we love to see it. I feel like I didn't coin that phrase, but I feel like it's definitely good to see that, because people sometimes, with the whole quarantine stuff, and when it first started, I tell my friends all the time, looking back on it, quarantine was actually low-key kind of fun, but living through it, it was like, bruh, like really, like it was just looking back, like the way we used to be doing stuff, or like, some people come over here and do like little stuff like that. Now we wasn't, wild and, like this in the house. But, you still had people over, do a little stuff. And it was just interesting so much that you was able to see during that time. So many people's brands shot up during that time, and the one dude, I can't think of his name, he was DJing for like 12 hours or 9 hours or something crazy like that.
The one that had like Michelle Obama come in. I forget his name too. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was so much that happened. So that's why for me, I just always, and it's so simple, but when stuff happens to me, good or bad, typically bad, of course, I stop and say, okay, what is this trying to tell me? Like, it's been times where we be late to work and we'll say, well, oh, it was bad traffic. But what if you would have been the one in that accident? You just never know what was going to happen. So, little stuff like that, I think is good to think about. So according to
blessings in disguise.
Yeah, your blessing in disguise, hashtag it. All right. So according to an article on dumblittleman.com, it says there are 4 reasons why change or adjusting can be difficult. So it says change is not popular. It says resisting change is a universal mentality that invites dislike and tension, hence is unpopular. So people trying to just like, I ain't feeling that. And unfortunately, in our community, people, I feel like a little more open to it now, but especially like our parents and grandparents, they not with it. They not with it at all.
I got a new tattoo, like not to make it like light or funny, but just to think about it. I got a new tattoo. I've been out of my parents' house for years. I don't ask, they don't pay for nothing. I'm on my own. My mother came to drop something off. I was like, let me just put on these pants because I don't have time to hear her dislike of my new tattoo. I'm grown as hell and I'm still like, I don't have time. She's still not open to it. I just don't want to have the argument.
Just like whatever. The second one is the fear of the unknown. It says, because our fears, we can resist what we cannot calculate or discern an outcome for. So that's typically why people don't do a lot of stuff. They scared, The third one is leaving our comfort zones. It says, although it scares many of us to venture outside of our comfort zones, many individuals relish in it. I am individuals. I'm excited for something different. I get tired of the same old. That's just how I always have been. And I feel like just how you handle yourself, how you talk and things, you seem like that type of person too, where you just kind of like, I'm gonna go with the flow type person. Don't get it twisted. I'm still a planner, but I'm still go with the flow at this. I'm like a healthy mix of both because I've lived the lifestyle trying to plan out every little thing, and it's stressful.
I agree, and I believe I'm definitely one of those people too, especially when you think about like vacations. I'll have a loose itinerary. Like, I know I want to see these 5 things. When we go see it, I don't care. But if we get on that plane and I ain't see those 5 things, I'm going to have an attitude.
That's the thing. And like, I've been that person, or I've been around people. Like, for instance, for my birthday, we went to Miami, and this was in June. So, that was still kind of mid quarantine, but I was like, I was like Simba, I laugh in the face of danger. I was like, look, I'm tired of being in the house. If I die, I die. That's just how I felt. And so basically when we went, I kind of really, I got a lot of friends, but this group was strategic. I planned people who I know wasn't going to complain, who I know wasn't going to get on my nerves, who I knew was going to be just to go with the flow. And everything we wanted to do, we did it. It might not have been in a certain order, like you said, but it got done. And it was, I'm even to the extreme of who moves slow. Because I ain't got time. Like, we up and moving.
Like, it takes you 90 minutes to get ready? You can't come.
No. No. And if so, I'm going to wake you up and make you get up for me. So if we getting up at 10, you up at 8:30 because you waiting on us. And the last one says, uncertainty comes from certain. It says we are forced to navigate untested waters when we change, and therefore we prefer what we are certain of. So that one I think is kind of interesting because it says, again, we typically don't like what we're not sure of. But I just kind of feel like it kind of goes off of the last one of the comfort zone. I personally think that if you don't have uncertainty with something, then is it really something that's going to be big? Is it really something that's going to be great? Because if you just know it's, I mean, and sometimes when we as creators and stuff like that, we have stuff like, I know this gonna hit, I know this gonna pop, but in the back of your head, like even you said earlier, you kind of had your mindset up, this they might get judged and talked about and that kind of thing. So it's funny that we say that because it leads to my next question. So have you ever dealt with, negative feedback or criticism as a woman, a Black woman who has a a set up for Black men to be vulnerable, which, has been an issue now. They'll say, oh, well, he too close. Now I've heard he's too vulnerable. So which is like, you can't win. So how do you deal with not being able to win, I guess you should say, if that makes sense?
That's an interesting question, only because I would assume to say, yeah, I've dealt with that. I am blessed to say with this brand in particular and everything that's been put out, I haven't had that. Now that said, behind closed doors and that wasn't brought to the forefront, I don't know.
Right.
And we can keep it that way.
Right. Exactly.
But in the retrospect of it, I was prepping myself for it. And I was prepping myself for it in 3 different avenues, to the fact of, one, I'm biracial. So I had to think about the fact that I'm doing a whole project that's around Black men and I have a white father. So how I jumped ahead of it before anyone can do some digging and try to bring it to the forefront,
Right.
I did an episode with my father. I was like, we're just going to put it out there. I'm going to say it before y'all do.
Basically.
Then the second one was, and I did actually have this one interaction. We're talking about men being vulnerable. So the toxic masculinity might jump out of some men that aren't ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an Instagram live interview with a man that was like that. And he was very combative and he was trying to use his intelligence to throw me off. But just because I don't use SAT words when I speak doesn't mean I don't understand the SAT words when you're speaking them to me. I just prefer to speak differently. So I was keeping up and challenging him to the point where my friends and people I didn't know in the comments were calling out that I'm calling him out, that he wasn't ready, that he was being challenged. And then I was getting DMs where people were exposing his toxic traits in the past. So for me, it was like, okay, I was prepping myself for this moment. And I'm happy to say I was able to accomplish like succeeding in this moment. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna be prepared to keep having these moments, but at least I understand like how to handle it and not be a Queens girl and tell somebody, hey, you want to meet me outside? This is my address. So that was growth for myself.
Like insecure growth.
And then the last would be thinking about white men seeing me talk about mental health and them trying to use anything like, well, what are your credentials? Okay, if we want to talk about credentials and studies, guess what? I'm now signing up to get my certificate in mental health and human behaviors. So you can't say anything to me. So now I have the educational piece behind it.
It's just funny how this conversation is rolling and rolling to something else, because I remember when I first started this, because I had, I definitely had the mental struggles that I've overcome, talking to my therapist, growing my relationship with God kind of simultaneously, and they just kind of, fizzled out. So, which was depression, anxiety, which I was diagnosed. So it wasn't, I just read something and figured it out. I was actually diagnosed. And then I had suicidal. So for many, many years. So for me, I felt like when I first started this podcast, because as somebody who was very vocal, I'm very vocal, deemed as outspoken in some cases. I kind of am. But I was always made to seem like, oh, you crazy, you tripping. But in reality, everybody has something to say, even the craziest people. Now, I'm not going to lie. Some people are a little off, and sometimes you might have to leave them alone, because I've learned from experience. It's like, it's not going through. So you got to leave them alone.
Yeah.
But I do feel that everybody's voice matters and everybody has something to say. So that was kind of the reason for this starting, because people to think outside the box and, I ain't look at it like that. I might not agree with Kat, but I see where she coming from, just that kind of, their perspective. So I say that just because it's good to see that you kind of going through adversity, and in reality, as you continue to grow, as more is going to come. That's just how life is. And I remember, one of my comments on my Apple podcast, if you go scrolling and look, although the rest of them are pretty good, but if you go scrolling through them and look, you'll see the one that was like, do I have a degree in theology or psychology to be talking about any of these topics? Or did I have any formal training? And I just thought that was interesting because you even hear it in my intro. I say this is not a means of replacement of therapy, any of that. This is just for conversation. So you losing it as a diss, maybe you trying to tell me something that I may can do. I'm just saying, like, it was just interesting how people will say you're not a therapist or a counselor. I said, but I'm not trying to be. I'm just opening the door for conversation.
Exactly. And I think now more than ever, if someone comes to me with that type of energy, I will look at them and be like, so the president that's running the United States right now, what is his credentials to be our president? You can't tell me nothing anymore. You can't tell me nothing. If I want to sit here and talk about this, and I've done my research and I've lived through my own experiences, I'm going to talk about it because you guys, white America, you put this man in charge. So I don't want to hear nothing y'all have to say.
At this point, like you said, with that we probably gonna use it for the clip for the intro for this episode. But I mean, it makes you think. Like I knew that about him, but I didn't really realize that. Like, and Ronald Reagan was the same too, wasn't he an actor? And then he was the president. I think so. Was it Ronald Reagan? One of them. I don't know. I try not to keep up.
I was like, if it's not Barack Obama, I don't know.
All right, so take us on an adventure right now of how Kat gets her guests together for Black Men Cry. How do you go about it? Do people reach out to you? Do you send emails? You say, hey, you popping, I need you on my stuff. How you go about it?
That's a great question. It's interesting because when I first did season 1 and I did 10 episodes, the first 4 or 5 people I already had in my mind. It was some of my guy friends that I was already having those dialogues with. So I was able to tap the 2 of them. Like 2 of them, I was able to tap them first. And I knew exactly what I wanted to speak about. Then one of them, he is good friends with a VH1 reality star, business owner in Harlem. So he was able to get me that connection. So I was also tapping in my own network, like, hey, you're connected to this person. I had like a vision board at first, like here are some top key people I would love to be able to have a conversation with. Again, I thought it'd be later down the line due to the passing of Kobe Bryant. There was one particular person who held a space where we openly talked about our feelings about the passing of Kobe Bryant. And I was able to introduce myself to him like, hey, I heard about you when I first came out with this concept. Someone told me about your project. I've been following you for a few months. I'm a fan of your work. This is what I'm doing. I would love to have the opportunity if possible. He agreed and he was able to be on season 1. And again, I thought I wasn't going to have him until like season 3. I worked myself up. For season 2, since everything's been put out, I have been blessed with people reaching out and asking how can they be on the show. So there are like half people, I would say actually 70% of the guests that are on the show actually asked, which made me feel good. Like, okay, men are now feeling more comfortable wanting instead of being asked. Like they want to share their truth. They want to talk about what they're going through. They want to give back to, the culture, the community, the youth, so they can hear and learn and experience differently. But it is really just me sliding in DMs, building relationships, asking someone who may have a connection. I don't think I've sent a formal email for a guest yet. And I have, I think, a running list of 20 people that are still interested. And I'm still like starting the scheduling for season 2.
Okay, well, that's great. 2 things that you said that I live by definitely, one, I ain't even trying to be funny, but it go down in the DM for real. Like them DMs are a life changer. You don't understand. People be so scared to like reach out to people, especially. So I live in Houston now, and I obviously compared to like, Midwest, East Coast, Southerners are very friendly, but St. Louis is it's not Southern at all, but they have some quality.
Really?
It's in the Midwest. So most people don't know that. And that's why they be like, oh, y'all in the South. And when I used to come out here, they like, yeah, you from the South? I'm like, no, I'm from the Midwest. You know, it's
Right.
like it's considered the South of the Midwest to an extent because of the way we talk. And then you, of course, had Nelly with country grammar. So you hear stuff like that and think, oh, they, you know. But either way, St. Louis people really aren't friendly, you know. So when I came out here, I'm naturally friendly, though. I just am, you know. But like a lot of people aren't. So for me, I think people are hesitant to reach out because they feel like what they gonna say, I don't know them. And it's just like that mindset. I just think it's so toxic because you're not gonna get nowhere with that. You're not gonna get nowhere with that mindset of like, oh, you know, I don't know them. Because it's like if you right here and they up there, you know, it's like I'd rather reach out to them and get them on, you know, get up there with them than just trying to work with people that's just on my level that I know, if that makes sense. Did she freeze? So yeah, that's the thing. You know, people so scared to reach out to other people because of the feeling like I don't know them and that kind of thing. And I just feel like that's limiting you in the long run. And people need to get past that. Or people not wanting, and I said it before, not want to do stuff for free. And it's like you're not gonna start off getting paid. I don't know who told y'all this new generation that you're gonna get paid for the first stuff thing because you're not. You know, and even if you get a small fee, it still ain't gonna be nothing. So I don't know. It's just interesting. So, as a Black woman, do you feel as though men have a harder time adjusting than women? This is opinion based, it's all you.
Whew. I don't care. Listeners can say that I'm being biased. I'm speaking from my experience. Men, oh my gosh, men, 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 men. And I think it's part of the reason why I'm so passionate in trying to do this work
Mm-hmm.
because of the experiences with the men I've dealt with, dealing with, somehow keep attracting. Like, Lord, I get it. You want me to be a vessel here, but you're beating me down being this vessel. Can you just give me something to continue trucking through? And it's only funny because I talk about it on my social media platforms. I said, look, if you see me dragging men, I do feel the way that I feel, but I love our men so much that this is why I'm doing this. Like, you guys have to see what we're frustrated by. You guys have to see what's not okay anymore. You guys we have to come together. Like, I want to be in the space to be an ally, to be here to show, like, I'm supportive of this. You guys are seen, you guys are heard, but you guys also need to listen too. So what are we saying? What are our grievances? What are some things I need to change within you guys? It clearly isn't working if it's the same behaviors that are repeating and we're having the same trials, tribulations, stipulations, we're complaining about the same thing. So what, it's like insanity. So why are we still mimicking the same behaviors we know aren't good for us? And why are we so hesitant to take that step? There's more of my female friends that took the plunge and did therapy and said it's been the best decision they've made.
Mm-hmm.
My male friends are acknowledging they need it or they need to do something or something has to give, which step one, I'm all here for step one. But step two, we still ain't take step two yet. Like, the majority of men who haven't taken step two yet, but know about step one, that's where I see that the most hesitant to making that change. And more women are out here like, nope, I'm tired. Let's change this now.
Yeah, that was definitely for me. It was just like, okay, I'm tired of the same old, something got to give. And it's because, you know, I know a lot of people, when they do go to therapy, they typically, you know, they back and forth with the therapy. Me, I was all for what I'm doing wrong. Okay, cool. Let's fix it. Cause I was tired of the same stuff. And a lot of times men are starting to go, now I got one homeboy, he, shout out to Ron Dirty. He was on Twitter and he was talking about how he just started going to therapy, and he was talking about he tells everybody they need to do it. He was just talking about how much he loved it. It was only day one the other day, and he was just talking about how much he loved it. So it was good to see stuff like that, and that's definitely a major adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's kind of trudging through the episode, and usually I don't wait this late in the game to do it, but I'm glad we had the dialogue first. Now I'm doing it. So the title of today's episode, like I said, is Ben 10. So most people say, well, Ben 10, why that? So are you familiar with the show before I go into my rationale? Okay,
No.
so good, even better. So the show is called Ben 10, about a kid. It came out originally in 06. So, but then you know how they revamp stuff. So basically it was a show about a boy who found this watch, and the watch had like, it adds more as the show goes along, but it starts with 10 different aliens and they all have 10 different powers. So he basically goes fighting crime, I guess, using these aliens. So I call it Ben 10 because he has to literally adjust to whoever he's fighting, and that's which one he picks. So it's kind of like if you fighting a monster or alien that's in the water, you're not going to put on the fireman. You're going to put on something that you can fight him in the water. So he has to adjust based off of the villain. If he fighting somebody that's in the air, he not going to pick somebody that's just the big blob. He going to pick one of the aliens that can fly. So he goes based off of, who he fighting or whatever the circumstance, calls for. So I think that's something that we should try to do in our day in life, is trying to adjust to what comes our way versus trying to, complain or nag or just shut down. This coming my way, let me adjust to that. Okay, like you said earlier, oh, my cable out and the man said he coming. Oh, I can't come there. That's actually happened to me before. All right, phone on Wi-Fi. Hotspot. I thought my check was coming today or this money was coming today and never came. All right, well, I got some stuff in here I can throw. I'm telling you, your creativity really come out when you ain't got no food and you ain't got no money.
Hello. In college was that first experience. I'm like, you know what? These two things fit together.
Yeah, you mixing together stuff you never thought you was mixing, making preschool lunches again for yourself, and you 19, 20, like, oh, this pretty. I wish
like PB&J sandwiches do slap.
I remember I used to be in the house growing up, like in high school, and my mom would be cooking. I'm like, I don't want that. And then got to college and be like, man, I eat that now. So as we said earlier, like, it's good things that you can adjust to as well. Like, for me, more listens and streams on the podcast, unexpected checks coming, people. It's not always bad. Sometimes people re-popping up in your life can be a good thing. So typically we always deem it as negative. But, and this might be an interesting question. This just popped in my head. Since you started your Black Men Cry, has anybody popped back into your life randomly? Just out of nowhere, it seemed like.
So I made a face when you had said it because I agree with you. And in my head, I was like, but it's who you welcome back in your space, and who deserves to be welcomed back in your space. And that's something that 2020 is also teaching me. And the interesting thing about the person I think about who popped back in was also the person who gave me that last confirmation that I need to do this project. To make a long story short, and not to put anybody's business out there, it was a man that I was dealing with, and we were dealing with each other for years. One of those little nasty situationships. He is perceived and is what you would call or label a hood dude, a street dude. So very hard exterior. And on more than one occasion, I have seen this man cry. And he's been comfortable and safe to do that here. Now, granted, since we had a situationship, it went hella left, and I needed to leave his ass behind.
Right.
And I felt guilty because I was like, here's the person who gave me like, ooh, the battery in my back, but I can't save them all. And that's not my job. And I had to learn that. But they came like during quarantine, having their own situation going on, their own breakdown, came with an apology, and I welcomed the person back in my space. Because again, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. Here I am doing this work and talking about this work. So why am I not living what I'm preaching? Terrible decision. Again, I had to remove myself from that person's life. Like, hopefully my presence alone will carry you, and our whatever we were will carry you. You just cannot have access to me anymore, because in this work as well, you cannot take from me and not pour back into me as I'm trying to pour into others. You're depleting me for no reason. So that's the person that I think about, and it's interesting.
Yeah, so with that, I definitely agree, because first of all, anytime you starting something, be prepared. I feel like you starting something, especially if you feel like it's like, or know it's like your calling or your purpose, be prepared for pushback. And in that case with you, was definitely like that test to see what you're going to do. Because at first you originally was saying like, well, how can I preach this and not help him? But like you said, everybody's not your battle. I remember my therapist said it all the time. That's not your battle. You can't save everybody. You can love them from a distance. Me personally, I don't even, and everybody's different, but me, I'm a firm advocate for the block button. I block people because you just can't because especially, when people like talking crazy or just, you don't need any temptation, you got to block them. Maybe if you don't want to unfollow them, mute them. That way you don't see that stuff.
I'm big on that. That's my button. Mute, 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 mute.
That way, it's like you don't see that stuff, but you don't want it to make. Because sometimes, and we live in society, and we all do it. If somebody unfollowing you was cool, you like, dang, they beefing, but they just might just really can't see your stuff. So I think a lot of people take advantage of the mute button. I think I'm probably muted by some people, not even gonna lie, but it is, it is what it is. All right, so now for those who probably struggling like with change, like, okay, Kat, is y'all saying some good stuff, but how do I do that? So I got some research from the same site earlier and from this article called 5 Tips That Can Help One Adjust. It says, the first one says, embrace changes you are making. It says the more you persist, the easier it will become and make adjustments to the future. Accept the change makes the transition easier and enables you to develop and maintain a positive attitude. The second one says, which I think this is great, and I'm going to ask you afterwards. It says, identify supportive individuals in your life. So how is your support system? Because I definitely think I have a great one now.
I like the way that you answer that. I definitely feel like I have a great one now. And it's not to say that I probably didn't have a great one before, but I think my level of appreciating, recognizing, and utilizing, like all three, is at its all-time high right now. There's people that believe in me. There's people I can bounce ideas off of. I am typically not a vulnerable person, and this is something that I went through in therapy this year as well, and figuring out where that came from and why I'm not comfortable being vulnerable. In me practicing being vulnerable this year and testing the waters with like my support circle and being embraced by them and supported by them and checked in by them. And for me, it's also the idea of like being embarrassed, like to say I'm hurt. Like, what? Catherine never says that she's hurt. I've said I'm hurt so many times this year, and it's becoming more comfortable. So I do believe you are going to come into situations where you again test the water in a sense to see who is really for you, because you can't just be trusting yourself with anybody, because unfortunately reality is not everybody has your best intentions at the top of their head. So it's sort of trying to figure out and see and read people's responses, energy, and how they maneuver with you, handle you, for you to recognize this is my core and these are my ride or dies. And I know when shit hits the fan, when I don't feel 100, I can go to someone down this list and get fueled back into.
Right. And so it's funny, again, we just going along with it because the third one says maintain normal patterns. This is although you make changes in your life, you still need to maintain some normalcy in the process. For instance, you may try to maintain some of your pre-parenthood habits or patterns when becoming a parent and feeling that your whole world has turned upside down. So now how you just said that you started saying I'm hurt more, that's become like a normal pattern where you still maybe handle those situations like, maybe somewhat the same, but now you added to it and you making a new normal in a sense by saying, hey, y'all, I'm hurt by that, versus you just like, I don't care. Which typically we kind of, and just people in general, I don't even want to just label it as a race. People in general just say, I don't care when they really be in their room crying. And they crying and they self to sleep, but just refuse to just say it. Another good one, it says, I like this little website. It says, recall the coping skills that worked from your past. So anything that worked in your past, use it. Now, of course, not shutting down that Stonewall, and that don't work, but if she says, I'm saying I'm hurt, has been helping her and just helping her to be, seen as like that more vulnerable person than actually being it, then I say go for it. And I'm trying to think of a situation where I did something in the past that I know worked. I definitely know that saying how you feel in the moment definitely works. If they don't receive it, then that's kind of when you can, because for me, I've had situations where you try to tell people something you didn't like and they just kind of like brush it off. And I'll let you do it a few times. After a while, I'm going to just kind of Heisman. I'm going to have to kind of stay away. And the last one, it says, your emotions are important. Don't try to stifle them. It says, during times of change, you oftentimes become stuffers and do not allow yourself to experience those emotions that are totally normal during these periods in our life. That doesn't mean you should wallow in them. And I like that one too, because I don't like how people, sit up and mourn for years. But I feel like people mourn for years because they didn't allow themselves to feel it when it happened. And that's something I didn't learn the last few months.
That's powerful. What you just said, that's powerful. They mourn for years because they didn't allow themselves in that moment. That's powerful. And I also feel like I've seen that more. So without you saying it, it's clicking now for like what I say to like friends, family that are grieving and shit myself.
Right. So we're moving into the last few segments, really just two more. So the last one, this is real simple. So it's just, I always have, as a college graduate, just some tips and scenarios for people in college who listen to PSA and things like that. Like, I definitely start off by saying college is an adjustment altogether. So it's so much stuff that happened in college that just didn't make sense. And to this day, I just was like, how do we live through that? Do you have any scenarios or something that happened in college where you was just like, whoa, what is this?
I mean, I guess if we're gonna I'll use again a funny light one. So I'm from New York, so clearly it's a melting pot. So I know all cultures, I see all cultures.
Right.
I go to Philadelphia to a PWI, predominantly white institute, and to see it, like, I was like, oh, Caucasian people act like this? Like, this is a real thing. Like, I just thought it was exaggerated. Like, ain't no way people can act that way. Ain't no way people are this uneducated, this unaware. And then you're sitting through it, and then you're living through it. Like, did you just ask me if this was my real hair? This is a real conversation. Did you just confuse me with the one other Black person who's 3 shades darker than me in this class because there's only 2 of us in here? Did this really just happen? Are you teaching us about history? And because we're talking about the civil rights movement, you're asking the one Black girl in the class, how does she feel about that? And my response to him was, well, I don't know. Why don't you ask Rebecca how she feels about it? Like, when those things are happening, I really didn't believe it was true because of being in a different city where I don't have those experiences. And then seeing, I mean, again, not about people's business out on Front Street, but to see how nasty people are and the actual like, wow, white kids actually run around spoiled and don't know how to clean up after themselves or how to clean themselves properly. Like, we can joke about how they don't properly shower and bathe, but I've heard it from their mouths when they've had conversations with their friends discussing trying to remember the last time they took a shower and just being so disgusted that even though I took a shower but a few hours ago, I was like, I'm gonna go shower again because now I feel gross listening to you guys.
Right. It's just interesting to me. Just college itself was just a whole, I feel like, I tell people all the time, college was an experiment because it just was like, you felt like a rat placed in something and just figured out, figure your way out. And then, me, I went to, because I moved to Houston because I went to Texas State University, which is HBCU. So going here was definitely, and I tell people all the time, it was a great experience. It was a lot of stuff going on, but it was definitely a great experience. But I definitely think that for people, not me, but for people who maybe were Black that weren't around, Black people, and then to be dropped off in them. I've seen so many people who was just, culture shock because they had never been around so many Black people at once. They was one of the only Black children, the kids in the school, and then to go to, all Black school. And then it's funny you said the situation about the teacher asking you a question. I remember middle school. And I didn't think nothing of it because it was like 2 Black kids in the class. And I remember my teacher asked us, so how do y'all feel about that? And I answered, but I didn't click till later. Like, you might have not have been trying to be racist, but it was just like,
right.
It's inappropriate. And I don't,
right.
And I don't think sometimes they realize they can be a little inappropriate. So. All right, so ending off with the game time. All right, today's game is called Adjustments. As you know, my audience knows I'm going to ask my guest some questions that kind of relate to the topic, and she's going to answer them. So basically, you're going to tell me, are you going to adjust to the situation, or is it going to adjust to you? All right, so The first one, a little hard. It says parents are getting divorced after 30 years of marriage. Coming out the gate, I ain't gonna lie to you.
I'm not adjusting. I'm not adjusting.
She said she can't do it.
I can't. I can't. Lord Jesus, I can't.
All right. You're in the grocery store dealing with bad customer service.
I'm adjusting.
Okay. You just got $5,000 deposited into your account unexpectedly.
I'm adjusting and I'm quiet as I'm adjusting. Just
Don't
real
say
quick, let
nothing.
me just move it around in case they take it back.
This one I feel like pretty much know the answer because you kind of answered earlier, but it's on the list. So you dealing with an ex you shouldn't be dealing with. Are you adjusting to them or are they adjusting to you?
Before this week, they're adjusting to me. Am I saying that right?
Adjusting to you means basically you kind of like, okay, you about to deal with how I'm going to deal with you.
Before this week, I would have been adjusting.
Right.
This week was the final straw of everything, and now y'all adjusting to me.
Okay,
and that adjustment is you gone.
Good. It says that now this one kind of the same but a little different. So it says your dude, for in your case, your dude just called it quits after 2 years. Just like, I'm done, I'm out. You slammed the door one more good time. They was like, okay, I'm tired of her slamming doors, I'm out. They was waiting on something to happen for them to dip.
I don't like the idea of being left, so maybe I'm adjusting.
And the last one, I feel like I know the answer because it's a shameless plug. It says, Black men cry taking the world by storm.
It's both. It's both. The world is going to have to adjust to me, and I'm going to have to adjust to the world.
Okay.
It's both.
Okay. All right. So ending off with my question or challenge for the audience, please make sure y'all keeping up with these. I'm giving out gift cards. I'm giving out Cash App deposits. So y'all got to keep up with them and answer the question or challenge in your story on Instagram, tagging me and the PSA page, or just DM them to me and then I'll post them on my story. So for this one, and of course you don't have to answer because it's for them. I mean, it's something you think about too. Because I hear a lot of people just be thinking about it, but they don't answer it. So that's still good though. Tell me of a time where you had to deal with a life-changing adjustment, and then tell me how do you plan to deal with adjustments in the future. All right. So that's something you can just kind of think on. You ain't got to answer. If you want to, you can enter the drawing too. I don't care because I can just mail it. I've done it before. So anything you had to say before you go? This is a great conversation. I just like how everything just kind of just flowed effortlessly. Anything you
The only thing I want to say, and I always want to like leave off on these notes, it's hard to be, having the space, having a platform. It's hard to have these type of conversations, especially when it is open to ridicule, but it could be open to ridicule to something that's very deep and interpersonal. You're talking about your mental health, you're talking about your life, you're talking about your experiences. I thank you and applaud you for holding this space, especially being a Black man holding the space. I'm supportive. I'm standing behind as many of you as I can to get more of you to feel more comfortable to step into this light. So with that, I just want to thank you. And the last thing I'm going to leave off on is be kind to yourself. I say this every time and it sounds simple, but you don't realize how deep that be kind to yourself can be until you're in situations where you're literally beating yourself up mentally and you don't even realize it. Please be kind to yourself.
All right, we're going to end off with that one. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you.
Camera.